So it's just another video. So let's go ahead and do something else. I want to continue on custom endpoints. So I want to understand them perfectly. And what you're going to be doing is using an external API to push some data to the API so that we can create an invoice. So these are code that allows me to create an invoice. I'm going to copy this code. I'm going to go back to radsytsems here. I go to custom endpoints. And I'm going to create a new endpoint here. So no, it's not really there, but let's create an endpoint somewhere here. So at the bottom we're going to get a new endpoint name, and I'm going to be using this table, and the endpoint is going to be said invoice. So that's the code we want. Let's keep it like that. Now we don't want this, so delete it. Let's delete it all together, all the way to there. And let's put the code we just downloaded, copied here. So let's give it a tab spacing, and you have it like that. So right now we already have our endpoint. Now you notice that we have this data here. Okay, so we have the username, we have the amount, we have the currency. So this data is static, but we want this data to be dynamic, and this is the backend in the API, and we don't have the access to the backend from the application. So assuming this is a user who want to post some data to the API, they don't have access to the server. So what we do is in our API we create parameters that are going to be passed here, and in the frontend we are going to be populating those parameters in our frontend. So when a user enters some data in the form, we want that data to be pushed to this API, and it's going to be entered here. So whenever they click on submit, that data, all of it is going to be caught and put inside here. So the first parameter we need is the API key, but the API key, we are getting the API key from the logged in user. So this one is going to be easy. We are going to say request.user.api key. Where am I getting this? I'm getting this from the currently logged in user data here. As you can see, I'm using the people table to get the to register the user, so that's where we're getting it. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to populate the username, which is also going to come from the people table. So I'm going to say request.user.username. So these two values, we have gotten them from here, and this is Node-RED. So this is how we do it in Node-RED. So if you're using a view which is using Laravel backend, we're not going to be doing this. That's a whole different approach. Now the next thing we need to do, now everything else that is going to be down here is going to be parameterized. So we need to get it from here. So the amount the user is going to be entering it in the front end. So I'm going to come here and say create a parameter called amount. Let's create another parameter called currency. Create another parameter called invoice number. So generally you're just going to be creating this, so I don't want to make the video too long with me doing it. So let me pause and add the values. Alright, so we're back. So I've added all the parameters here. So you notice that now here I have the invoice number, which is exactly like this, the description, which is exactly like this, and the customer email. So now you see I've done the C email here instead of just the same way. This is because parameters don't have to be the same as the values. So parameters is something you think of in your head, and the only reason I put them like this is so that we can know what we are referencing. So basically that's it. The only thing you need to remember is whatever you add here has to be the same as whatever is up here. Great, so now we have created our parameters. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to register our parameters. So we're just going to come here and say let amount. So this has to be like this. So it can be let amount. So also the value that is holding the parameters doesn't have to be the same as this. Can be anything as long as you remember it. The only thing that has to be the same is whatever you're going to add here. So you're going to say request.params. Now this has to be the same as whatever is in the parameter. So you're going to say request.params. amount. There you go. Now the next one is going to be let currency going to be equal to request dot params dot. Now this has to be the same currency. So go ahead and do that. So I'm going to do it and come back when I've registered all of them. So I have registered all my endpoints, so all my parameters. So as you can see, everything here has to be the same as the parameter we have created here. But anything here can be anything. Now, the next thing we need to do is now assign these parameters to the values of our data. So here, where we have amount, we're going to delete this, and I'm going to copy this now and put it here. Okay, so now go ahead and pick currency and put it here, and invoice number and put it here. So do that for everything that is up there and get rid. Alright, great. So I've added my data and that is it. So the next thing we need to do is now go to the front end and get ready for that. Now, one thing you notice is where we have this RCS configuration, we have console.log. So this is where the data is being given back. So the data where you enter that data. Now, when the posting has happened, you're going to get the logs here. But now, if you want to get some response in the front end, you remove this console.log and do ls.ok. So it's going to be able to give you a response in the API, so you can get that and put it in the front end. So that's it. So maybe, for example, you want to get the success message. Maybe the server says your response is successful or your action has been successful. You have added an invoice successfully, invoice sent. Now ls.ok is going to allow you to handle those responses. Now the next thing you need to do is to go back to our in my front end. I have this page where I'm doing the users, but for this situation I don't want, because all my data is coming from the endpoint, I don't want this data to be posted by PHP. So I'm just going to be using the data that is going to be available here. So I want to design the page a little bit, and we can continue with editing the page. Alright, so I've styled my page, and now this is what my page now looks like. So I can be able to now go ahead and write some codes. Alright, so first things we need to do is go to the front end where we have the send invoice. So it's going to be just, where is it, hero front end source here, go to pages, and we need to go to invoice here, and we need to go to where we have our add page right about here. So what you're going to be doing here is writing our API code, which will be passing some parameters to the to our code. Now if you look here carefully, we have this form data which is going to be passing some values to our endpoint. Okay, so this is what we're going to be using as the parameters we created in our custom endpoints. So let's go back and see the custom endpoints. So in our endpoint here, these are the parameters we created: the amount, currency, invoice, description. Now, something you need to note, that the arrangement of your parameters here is very important. So whenever you're adding your parameters in the front end, they have to be the same. You cannot come here and take currency and put it here where we have the amount in the front end. No. If your backend, the first value is the amount, also in your front end, the first value must be amount. So we go to our front end here, and we need to create a new method, which is the mounted method. So this method is the one you're going to be using to talk to our API. This is what we would use to talk to our API if we want the action to take action, if you want the API to be sent when we the page loads. But now we are not doing the posting when the page loads. We are doing the posting when a button is clicked. So instead of doing this in the mounted, you are going to come down here and go to the methods, and this is where we're going to add a new function and called send invoice. So these are going to be doing this function here. Also always put that comma, and now you're going to now read the code. I'm going to say this.api dot get. Now the get here receives some values, and these values, okay, now please note there's a difference between this and this. So these are right below your escape key, so click on it and let's see. So whatever you're going to be putting inside that get is going to be the name of our endpoint. So this situation is going to be people/set invoice. So you're just going to copy that, and you're going to go back to our code and put it there. Now the reason why I put this type of speech marks is so that we can add variables inside our string. Now let's first of all continue and say this dot then. Now here what we're going to pass is a response, and let's push this to say this dot. So whatever we want to be here is going to be whatever that is going to be giving us a response back in the front end. So you can just come here and say status. So it can be status. So we're just going to be using status to display the values of our endpoint. So if the transaction is successful or not. So you're just going to come here and say this dot status. The status we have just created up there, and it's going to be results. So first let's give register some results. So you're just going to say let results is equals to response.data. So these response are going to be coming from the API. Now let's assign the results we have just created here to the status, the one that is registered here, the array that is registered here. Now if this is successful, now we want to come here and handle something if it's done. So just going to say response. So when this is done, we want to now just come here and say this dot loading is equals to false. So this is only going to be usable if you are doing this dot loading here. Otherwise you don't really need this, but let's just use it there. All right, so this is an API that is ready to work, but now it doesn't have the parameters. Now in the backend we created the parameters in our endpoint, which are amount. Okay, now in our frontend we have this field that is called amount. So this is the first value that has to be passed in our endpoint. So it doesn't matter the arrangement in the form, but the arrangement matters when you're passing it in the front end. So the first thing you need to do here is now declare the API, the value that is holding the amount. So if you come here to where we have our form data, we have this amount. Now note, form data is inside a form data object, so it's inside it, so you have to access it this way. So you're just going to come here and say anything else that is always here at the top where we have the data function, everything inside the data function is accessed using this prefix. So I'm going to come here and say this dot. Now note we have form data here, so you're going to come here, say copy this. You're going to say this dot form data dot. Now first thing I'm just going to do is copy everything here because it's just going to be same way everywhere. Just copy. Now here we're going to say this dot form data dot now the amount. So we're going to say dot amount. All right, now slash that and put the next parameter. Now in our endpoint the next parameter is going to be the currency. So we're going to say this dot form data dot currency here, which is going to be this way. Let me just copy this and put currency there. Good. Now the next thing is going to be checking our endpoint, the invoice number. So in our front end we have invoice number. So let's say invoice number. Now the next one is going to be, let's confirm here, it's going to be the description, which is also here. So the dot description, and the next one is going to be C email, C font, C name. So I'm going to pause now and finish that up. Alright, so my data is ready, all my parameters are ready. Now we have this form data, customer email. Now note that everything that is inside here is not coming from the endpoint, it's coming from here. So the endpoint, you only check the arrangement, like what comes first. You see, what comes first, what comes first. Because you want, if the invoice is here, then the invoice has to be here also. So how you have arranged it in your front end, or basically the arrangement of your forms, don't really matter. All that matters is that the way you arrange them here has to be the same as the way you have arranged them in the endpoint. Because if you check how we have done it here, form data amount is almost here. It's not the first thing here, but the arrangement we have put here is the same arrangement that is in the endpoint. Okay, so our data is ready now. So all we need to do is go back to where we have, go up to our form, and we need to change this button here to click on function. So we go and look for this button here, and we change this type from submit. Change it from submit, and we are going to add something else. So we're going to add a class right. Let's make it right. So, and let's add a click event. So we want, when we click this button, we want it to run the function we created in our methods, which is send invoice. So we just copy it the way it is and add it in this click event. So add it here, and we are ready to go. So let's see what we get. Alright, so as that page loads, we have this value we created in our data method. Let me point it out. We have this value we created here, which is the status, which is being updated in here, which is saying this status is equals to results. So we want to confirm that our data has been sent. So I'm just going to temporarily add it at the top of our page so that we can be able to see if something has happened. So I'm just going to come here and say status. So this is going to be returning an array. So let's see what we get. Hello. So now let's go ahead and try and add a record. So here at the top, you notice that we have this value here, which is an array, empty array. So we want this array to be updated when you click on submit. So let's come here and do add. Let's say Wahome. Let's give this a number of 0, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now let's give them an email. I'm just going to be using this is the email I use for testing purposes. I want this to be in Kenya shillings, and the amount should be like 200. Description, test payment. So when you click on this button here, it's not going to add any record in the database, but instead what it's going to do is going to send the code to the API. So as you can see here, it says you have provided a unique this is because I've clicked this button twice. Let me see, I clicked this button twice, so that's the main issue here. So let me just reload this page. Alright, so we are done here. Now if I click now on this submit button here, we expect to get something in return. Now there you go. So the response is coming from the API, and it's saying your invoice has been sent to this payment, of which I can now see the invoice in my email, because this is what the API is supposed to do. And yeah, that's it. So basically what we have learned is that you don't need to create your new forms with PHP with our system when you're adding an API. All you need to do is change that code in the API. So now let's go ahead and push these changes to our front end. Okay, but first we have something that we might need to check. So you can always check for status here, and if status is equals to success, then you can do something. But first, let me just take this code and put it in the front end. So our endpoint is okay. Now all we need to do is take this function, the function we created, which is called set invoice, copy this function, and you're going to go to the add page here, click on design, and you want to go to this new section. You can add the code in the page mixins here. Okay, so come to your methods in your page mixins and post it there. This is mostly important when you don't need to come here and do the custom edit, but because we are altering the button in the custom edit, we really have to come and edit this. So in our page, front-end page, where we have these values, so let me first of all regenerate this. So where we have the button, you need to come to where we have the button here at the bottom and change the type from submit. When you remove submit, this makes sure that this data is not going to be added in the database but pushed to your required API. So let's add a click event, which is going to be equal to the name of our click event, which we said is equals to send invoice. Good. So that's it. So is there anything else? That's all we needed to do. Now let's publish this, and we are going to come here, come back and do something else. Alright, great. So I've added the data. Now let's check if it's going to be working just as expected. Alright, so there was something we forgot to add, and I think it's okay if we come back to it. In our page mixins, you remember where we had that value called status? You also have to add that value called status here, and so that it can appear in the front end. So let's see. Alright, so we are now ready to do our test, and let's see what we can get done. Well, now, so let's go ahead and do the test and see. So I've added these values, so all that remains is to do the actual sending of it. So click on this. There we go. So our data has been sent successfully. Now the next thing you need to do, and the final thing we need to do, is whenever this data has been sent, we need to show a message here saying your data has been sent. So we can come and create a card at the top of our code. So let's go ahead inside our app, this add page. Let's go all the way up to the top where we have the status here, and let's create a card. So say Q card, and I'm going to say class is equals to bg green. Want it to be green, and you're going to come here and say close that card. Let's have a div class which is going to be equal call md12 and call small 12. Okay, so this is going to be the div that's going to be holding the card like that. Okay, so we're going to say div if. So we're going to come here and say div if, and let's first of all close this div like that. So here at the top we have the status is holding the status value, and is also holding a response value. Okay, so your status now is going to be, so we're going to say div if status dot. Now remember, we are trying to access this JSON that is being returned by the status. So we're going to say, if you want to access the status, we're going to say status dot status, but we want to access the response, which is going to be status dot response. So we're going to come here and say status dot response. Okay, dot. Finally, we have not yet done. because inside the response we also have another object which is status. So we want to check for status. So we're going to come and check if status dot, now this is capital status as is in the endpoint. So we're going to say if status the response dot status is equals to success. Now you need to put this single success. So we need to check how it's written in our API. So this is how it looks in our API. Then we need to display the message. Okay, so you are checking the status is equals to success, then we need to display the message. So inside our card here, let's make the text to be white and let's make it bold. So we're going to say text bold like that. And now the values are going to be inside here. Let's give it a span class of text center, and let's put this. So we want, if the value is equal to success, we want to say we copy this up to there. So if the value is equal to success, then we want to display the message. So the message is going to be this. So copy this and put it where we have this. So let's save and see what we get. Hello, so we're back now. There's something that we need to fix. So at the top here we have the status. At the bottom here we have the conditionals that are checking if the status is correct or not. So it's checking if it's equals to success or not. Now the problem with this, if we come to this view page here, you notice that this page is blank. Now the problem with this is because this data has not yet been declared here. Because note that this status is being updated every time that we click the button. Okay, so this status is already going to be updated on mount. So if we are doing this function on mount, then this status will be loaded when the page loads. But because we are handling this on button click, that's why we have a blank page. Now this is what we are going to do. So we are going to come here and create our card here. Okay, so let's delete everything here. Come here and delete this. Here we are going to have the card status. Okay, so this is going to be a value that is going to be updated every time that we click the button. So it's not really going to be there. So it's really going to be empty, but whenever you click the button, we want it to be updated. Okay, so we are just going to come here, and in our card we want to make this card class dynamic. So here we are going to have the color. Okay, so I have the color there, and let's go to our data function and pass that color. So the default color is going to be transparent. Okay, let's have it as BG transparent, like that. Okay, now remember we have also created another one which is called the send status. Here copy this send status and put it at the bottom of this page. Just delete this. So we have the send status is going to be null. So let's have it as null. So it's just going to be empty, but whenever we save that project, we want it to be updated. Now let's go to our click method here. Our click method. So let's save this code. Now the code be inside our add mixins, because whenever we posted the code in the mixins, it updated itself there. Now remember we have created some values in the frontend, which is called the send status and the color. So we want to update these values whenever you click the button. So we're just going to come here and say if, okay, so we're going to say if this results. So we're going to come in and say if results dot response dot status is equals to failed. Okay, so if the value is equals to failed, then we do something. So remember, we have this value, the color. So we want to update the color of that card. So just going to come here and say this dot color is equals to, we now want to make it red. So we're going to say bg red. Okay, so we have updated it. Then we do the same thing. Come here and say if is equals to status, success here. We want this to be bg green. Then you can give it a padding of qpamd. Also here give it a qpamd, like that. So when you click on this button, the status is equals to this, we want to update this. We also want to update the message, so we're going to come here and say this dot card status, the one that we are getting from here, or it's send status. This dot send status is going to be equals to, copy this. So instead of the status, we want to get the message dot message. Copy this and put it here also. So once we save that, we should see something. Okay, so I've added a record and click send, and now here at the top you notice that now we have this card which says invoice will be sent to this payment. Now let's click again so that the invoice is no longer going to be unique, so we get an error, and see if we can update this card automatically. There you go. So now we can display the error messages, and that is it. So the next thing you need to do is just take this code and copy it in your front end. So you're just going to copy this code, copy it out to that point, and then we need to go to our PH period, go to the page mixins, and go to the mixins page, and let's update this here. Good. Now the next thing you need to do is also do the same thing for the data functions we created, which is going to be equals to this add page here. So we need the color and this. So copy this, put it here in the data, put it there, and this is also going to have a text of white. Okay, let's not update that there first. Let's say okay. Now I'll go to the page where we are doing the additions, and you need to go all where we have added that code, which is this. Copy this, paste it in your front end part. It's going to be here. Let's put it here and remove it here. And now let's give this a class of text center and text white and text bold. Now let's publish and see if we get the update working. Okay, so let's see. But it seems there's something that's missing, the email. And now let's see. Kenya Shillings customer name. So there we go. So we get this very nice looking card there. So let's click again and get the error. Good. So now we have this error here. So we have learned how to do this in radsytsems. So we are working with an external API, and the advantage of having using radsytsems provided forms is because it comes with their own validations. If maybe you remove that is is very important and required here, this button disables, so it will only be available at the bottom here, as you can see. So that's the advantage of using this, and you don't have to worry about you creating your own form field. So that's one of the advantages that's going to be helping you along the way. So yeah, so in case you want to learn more on Rust systems and Node, there's a course available. A link is in the description. You can just check it out. And also, to support the channel, also you can subscribe for notifications every time we upload our videos. And that'll be it. See you in the next one. In case you have any questions, leave them in the comment, and thanks for watching.